The Texas-California rivalry is heating up, folks. And on today's video, I'm going to talk about why so many people are leaving California for Texas. I'm going to talk about what's attracting all of those people there. And I'm going to answer a lot of questions about Texas. Is it becoming the next California in terms of the tech hub, in terms of everyone going there? And also the drawbacks of Texas. What's going on out there with the power grid? Is Texas going to turn blue? And all kinds of other things that you want to know about the Lone Star State. So if you live in California and you're considering going to Texas, or maybe you live in Texas and you're concerned about all of these people Californianing, is that a word? Your state, you're going to want to stick around and watch this whole video because we're going to talk about all of that and more. Let's go. Hey, what's up, my friends? I am DSCVR. Thanks for tuning in to another video. And as you might be able to tell right around here on my nose, I really banged myself up this morning. I was actually at a property that I'm remodeling. I did a video about that. It's called My First Flip. You can check it out on the channel right over here. Actually, not a lot of you are really too interested in that, so you probably won't want to look at that. But anyhow, I was there. There was a chandelier, like a round modern chandelier hanging. I didn't see it and banged right into it and knocked this big gash in my nose. So that's what that is, in case you were wondering. But anyhow, let's dive right into this video. So lots of questions to answer today. Is Texas becoming the next California? The good, the bad, and the ugly about all of that. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to give me a big thumbs up and hit that like button right there down below. That will do two things. First of all, it'll tell YouTube that this is a great video and they should share it with everyone else on YouTube. And second, it'll tell me that you like this kind of content so that I can make more of it. So as you guys might already know, since I've talked a lot about it on this channel, there are a ton of people moving to Texas. Most of them are actually coming from California. The California exodus continues for all of the reasons that we've talked about. When the pandemic started in 2020, a lot of different things happened in California that drove people to want to leave the state. In fact, a lot of those things are still happening now, my friends. Schools are mostly still closed in California, although they're starting to reopen. California has a lot of restrictions during the pandemic. It's caused a lot of small businesses, a lot of restaurants to close, as you've probably heard about by now. Texas, on the other hand, which is the second largest state in the union behind California and the biggest Republican state, has taken a different approach to the pandemic. It's been more open. The stay-at-home orders were lifted earlier. Most recently, the mask mandates were lifted. And so a lot of people, when the pandemic started, really started evaluating their situation and decided that the Lone Star State might be the place for them with its more lax regulations, better tax situation, lower cost of living, and a lot of other factors, such as maybe better gun rights, if you're into that, caused all of those people to leave. Just to name a few, of course, we had Elon Musk famously battle with Alameda County in California and decide to leave for Austin, Texas. We had Joe Rogan, who left California for Austin for a lot of the same reasons: freedoms, personal liberties, more open space, and things like that. I don't think cost of living really mattered to Joe Rogan, but taxes sure did. As I've talked about on this channel, he signed a $100 million deal, and so when you leave California for Texas, that's at least 13.3% that you won't have to pay, because Texas, unlike California, doesn't have any state income tax, while California has the highest state income tax of all of the states, in addition to, of course, the highest gas taxes, business regulations, and all kinds of other stuff. Speaking of businesses, so many companies have fled California for Texas in this last year. Oracle, HP, Charles Schwab, just to name a few. And a lot of them, when asked why they're leaving, it's because of those business regulations. California is consistently ranked near the last spot or dead last in most business-friendly states. I've also talked about that on this channel, while Texas is consistently ranked near the top. In fact, Governor Greg Abbott over in Texas has been busy recruiting people and companies out of California, while Governor Gavin Newsom in California has been busy getting recalled. The recall election in California, as you may already know, has surpassed 2 million signatures as of the deadline. Now those signatures are being verified, and then a recall election will likely be set. You could check out another video I did talking about that in more specificity. And so you guys, with all of these people leaving California and other places for states like Texas, which are more open and more free, the question becomes, will Texas become the next California in a number of different ways? The first question I want to ask about that is, will it become the next California in terms of tech hub? A lot of the tech firms are leaving Silicon Valley for Texas. Will that become the next California in terms of business climate? My answer is maybe, maybe not. A lot of companies, of course, have left, but a lot of companies still remain in California and in Silicon Valley up in the northern and Bay areas. And so I don't believe that Texas will really take over for California in that sense, but venture capital funding in Austin especially is way up. A lot of companies are also going to Dallas, so it may really be boosted in those areas thanks to all of those companies going. I don't believe it'll actually take over, but hey, there's a lot of young talent in Texas with the university system that's really good, pumping out a lot of people. And the cost of living is lower, so a lot of the employees want to be in Texas because they'd rather be there where their money goes a lot further. Speaking of your money going a lot further, I've talked about cost of living a little bit, but you guys, when you look at the cost of living in terms of real estate, in terms of gas prices, just in terms of buying ordinary everyday items, the cost to live in Texas is so much less than the cost to live in California. And so I do believe that for certain segments of the population, such as the middle class, Texas offers a much more attractive destination. Now, I know you've seen a lot of the wealthy people and celebrities that go to Texas, and they can afford to do that. And quite frankly, you know, the tax issue, of course, plays a big part. But other than that, they can also afford to stay in California, which makes it all the more interesting that those people are choosing to go to Texas over California when they can really afford to stay. See, guys, I read a lot of comments on my channel that say stuff like, well, let those people leave, it's no big deal. If you're running a state, this creates a big problem because those wealthy individuals and those companies are also paying a large chunk of the taxes, and the taxes are the state's revenue. So if you're running the state, you really don't want to see all those people leaving, going to another state and taking their business over there. But folks, that is exactly what's going on. Now, Texas is not without its share of issues. Hey, no place is perfect, right? So let's talk about those for a little bit. First and foremost, as you probably heard, earlier this year, Texas had a huge weather issue and a power outage issue. In fact, it was the largest natural disaster in Texas history, with almost $200 billion, that's with a B, dollars worth of damage done due to the record storm that came through Texas earlier this year and knocked out power. In addition, a lot of the power was taken out purposefully. Let me tell you why that happened. A lot of people have asked. I'm going to boil it down in a nutshell. So Texas actually runs on its own power grid. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. There is the West power grid, the East power grid, and then Texas. And the reason that came to be is that around World War II, Texas did not want to deal with federal regulations around power, so they basically separated themselves. And so when this happened, a lot of their infrastructure was not winterized because they just weren't ready for this crazy once in a 100-year storm. And so a lot of the equipment failed, and then they had to purposefully shut down a lot of the other power so that everything didn't fail. So this was something that was definitely unexpected, something that I am not sure would happen again. But in light of that, Texas has launched an investigation and they are looking into it. And I got to tell you, I kind of trust Texas to take care of that power situation a little more than I might trust California, but that's only me. The next question to answer about Texas, and this is a big one, is will Texas turn blue? In fact, a lot of my friends who have watched my videos and have said, Danny, are you going to Texas? You know, eventually it's just going to turn blue because of all those Californians heading over there to that state. And that, folks, is essentially what is occurring. If you look at the Texas voting map, you'll see that the major cities, Dallas, Houston, Austin, of course, we know is leaning liberal, but a lot of the major cities are turning liberal, turning Democrat. That is actually a pretty natural occurrence as those cities become bigger. However, the majority of Texas still remains red. If you look at the voting history of Texas, Texas has not voted for a Democrat president since Jimmy Carter in 1976. Since then, it's been Republican controlled pretty much across the board. Now, as I said, there are sectors of Texas that are leaning Democrat, but mostly it is a conservative Republican state. And I have to tell you, maybe this is totally wishful thinking, but I believe that Texas will continue to stay red. In the last presidential election, it was just as red as ever. So Democrats really have not made any huge inroads into the political climate there. Maybe Ted Cruz's foray over to Cancun during that winter storm will help Democrats a little bit, but his term isn't up for a few more years anyway, and everyone will forget all about that, right? Now, guys, in all seriousness, I do believe that the people that are going to Texas, yes, some of them will try to California the Texas atmosphere, but for the most part, I do believe that the people going there are going there for a reason. And if you're one of those people going there, I'm talking to you. When you get there, bring that California spice and flavor and all that kind of good stuff. But remember why you left California in the first place. I've made a lot of videos on this channel talking about what's happened to California, all the reasons that it has become a terrible place to live for a lot of people. And don't bring that nonsense over to Texas and vote for the same kinds of policies, because eventually the same thing will happen in Texas. But for now, I think we're good to go and pretty safe to stay in that red column. I also want to touch on the Texas immigration issue that's going on right now at the border. What's happened with that, because a lot of people have asked me, is that the new administration has overturned a lot of the policies of the old administration, and people have started flocking to the border in anticipation of being allowed into the United States. And that has caused a crisis at the border. Now, that might not have a huge effect on the state, but it really is affecting that lower part of Texas. And as those people feed into the state, some have said that as many as 1 million people could try to get across the border by this summer. That will undoubtedly have its effect on the state of Texas for sure. So the bottom line question, will Texas become the next California? Well, in some ways, yes. A lot of people are going there. It's a very attractive place to do business. It's a very attractive place to live for families, for individuals, for employees, for employers, for celebrities. And when you start to see that happen, it becomes a very great place to be, especially in the cities like Austin and Dallas. Those are becoming extremely popular destinations for people we should know. In real estate, so many people in California leaving and going to those places. So I do believe that it will become the next California in that sense. As far as a tech hub, a lot of tech companies are moving there as well. So that should start to turn also. But in one way, I do hope that Texas doesn't change, and that is the way it votes, because that's what makes Texas, Texas. Those freedoms, those individual liberties, those conservative policies. And we don't want to see that change, because then maybe a lot of those people will need to leave again. Thanks for tuning in today, you guys. Be sure to follow me on all of my social channels. I'm all across the board there. You can see all the cool stuff I post every single day. Text me for giveaways and exclusive content to connect with me directly, and I will catch you on the next video.